Hello guys, welcome to Bike Matters. My name is Alex and you join me today riding the Rieju or Rieju Aventura 125. It's a 125cc adventure bike and it's a very, very interesting machine. Been riding it around today in the Peterborough area on some lovely back roads and it's just been fantastic fun. But let's talk about this 125cc adventure bike and wonder why there isn't more of these on the market today. But let's get into it. So this is a 2023 motorcycle, brand new, and it's from Rieju, who's a Spanish company, but they pronounce it Rieju because there's no J in Spanish. Anyway, this is the Aventura 125, and it's £4,199. It's in dealerships now, so you can go and test ride this today. And this is a really interesting prospect to ride. Now, Rieju, which I'm just going to say in my English accent, is a very interesting company because it's Spanish and they don't have the same way of doing things that other manufacturers do. I mean, this bike is a very different looking machine. I found it really interesting when I first saw this bike, when I believe it was seen at EICMA as like a little preview for it, but the front headlights instantly make it look worlds apart. It's sort of similar to the Suzuki with their stacked headlights, but it just looks different on the road and it's got a nice road character to it. Of course, it's a bigger bike as well, and it only weighs 138 kilograms dry. So when you fill it up with fuel within the 14-litre tank, it does weigh a little bit more. But this thing feels so agile on the road. If you're going along a nice straight bit of road and you give it a little bit of movement, you feel the bike move underneath you, and it's quite a sort of bizarre but nice feeling to be riding a bike that's so light. I'm used to riding bikes that are like 180 kilograms plus, so usually over 200. So when you jump on a bike like this, it sort of feels like a push bike that's got a nice motor in it. It's really weird, but it's very agile and it's very responsive to the inputs you give in there. So mid-corner again, if you push in on the bar to sort of counter steer your way through, it's really responsive, and I quite like that about this bike. In fact, it's one of the best things about this bike. It's how it handles. The 125cc engine is a 4-stroke, 4-valve EFI, and it's a liquid-cooled single cylinder. It's got around about 13-ish brake horsepower, and that's good to get you up to 70 miles an hour. The only issue is, of course, it's a 125, so when you start to get to that 70 miles an hour, things start shaking a little bit and it starts to get a little bit vibration heavy, but that's just standard across the 125cc range. You get that all across the place. But this thing would be incredible fun to ride off-road. We didn't get to do any off-roading today on it, but even on-road, it was really good fun. Nice and agile, loves to be chucked into a corner. And even mid-corner, the upside-down forks and suspension keep the bike to hold its line mid-corner. And that's something I really enjoyed, is when we were doing some photo and video runs, doing the same S-bends over and over and over again. It was just so fun to find a line and stick to it every time. You do end up riding in a 4/5 gear around most corners to make sure you've got enough speed and torque to pull yourself out. If you go in, say, 2nd and 3rd gear, a lot of times you'll be hitting the rev limiter, which is at around 10k revs. Whilst on that note as well, the LCD dash is really nice and clear and really visible. And it's got everything on there in terms of gear indicator, fuel status, it's got your trip and odometer, the engine heat, and then of course the revs that go all the way to 10k. And when it goes to 10k, there's a little red bar instead of a blue bar, which is quite a nice touch. But anyway, that engine is really nice to just carry the speed around, and as I always say with 125s, there's a lot of fun to be had in trying to maintain that corner speed and keep yourself going at a good pace, especially with a bike like this that handles so well. Now, one point I did want to make is going to be how this bike feels comfort-wise. Now, I'm a 6'3" rider, and of course, thinking back to the sort of Honda Varadero days where this is a similar sort of size, I was really excited to jump on this bike just to see how I fit. Now, you can sort of see here, there's an indent in the tank, and when I'm sat down with my feet on the pegs right below me, my knee is right up to this bit on the tank. So if you're any taller than 6'3" with long legs, you might struggle. You can't really move too far backwards in the seat either because it raises up for the 2-step seat. And when my butt's sat here, my knees are there, there's not really much room for maneuvering. I fit in just fine, so when I'm taking, you know, a nice corner and one of the legs come off the bike a bit, it then slots back in nicely when you get back on the straight. So it's not too much of an issue. But that's just something I did notice. I did just forget to mention as I look at my notes, the seat is 780mm tall as well. So whether we cut that in or just say it here, that's great. Got a nice wide bar as well. And that sort of feels similar to the Supermoto and Enduro bikes that Rieju have. It just has a lot of character and it makes it feel really quite in sort of command position of the bike on the road. Really nice. So moving elsewhere, it's a high strength tubular frame. You've got a monoshock at the rear and upside down forks at the front. The suspension isn't too firm, it's nice and soft. So when you're going over some, you know, repetitive bumps and stuff like that in the road, you do feel it. but it's actually quite nice and comfortable. I'd say for a 125cc, this is certainly one that you could pick up and ride for a long distance. And again, 125cc's are frugal, so you know you're going to be able to do a long old journey on this. I think the estimated fuel mileage is certainly over 200 miles. Rieju said that this is going to be very low on the fuel consumption charts in terms of it just sips away at fuel. But our ride was only very brief today, so I didn't get to really check how much miles per gallon you'd be doing on a full tank. But in any case, 125s are frugal as anyway. So let's move to the brakes as well. Up front, you've got an 18-inch front wheel, and on there is a sort of wavy disc. You've got a 260mm disc at the front, it's just single. And then at the rear, you've got a 240mm disc. The front disc has a 2-piston caliper, at the rear it's a single piston, and they are combined braking systems. So when you put on the rear brake, some of the front comes on, so you do have a little bit of a dive. But you get used to it, and it's again quite common with 125cc bikes. I would say that an ABS system would be quite nice on this for the premium price tag. I mean, £4,199 is pretty much way up there when you're looking at 125cc bikes, especially when they're not in sort of big four. And an ABS system would be quite nice, but then it's not necessarily warranted. You don't feel like you're missing out by not having ABS here. And to add to that as well, Street Fighter V4S probably. Beautiful. So the braking on this is really nice, and you feel like the brake's quite instant and quite bitey at the front. At the rear, it's a little bit softer, and of course the front does come on a little bit. I think it's going to be one piston that comes on when you press on the front. And overall, nice system. If you were to take it off-road, you'd be able to lock up the rear a little bit as well, so that's always fun. Just looking up front, there's all the nice switch gear here. The indicator's really nice to use. The horn sounds really weird. I did use it and it just sounded a bit just not right, but horns are horns. Other than that, the switch gear is really nice. There's no cruise control, there's no heated grips or anything like that. It's nice and basic, but it all does what it says. So in my eyes, that's bang on. You've also got a USB charger up front as well, which is always handy. If you've got like a little sat nav or phone that you want to mount on there and charge as you ride, bang on, perfect. Now, as a quick comparison as well, we've reviewed the Sinis Terrain, which I'd say is a direct competitor to this bike. That's £2,899. This one, of course, is £4,199. So the Sinis Terrain is a far more budget-friendly bike, but at the same time, it doesn't quite have the performance. And whilst the spec is there, it does also weigh a little bit more. I think it's 162 kilograms or thereabouts. And the performance isn't quite the same. The gearbox doesn't really feel like it does much, to be honest. It just changes the sort of pitch of the engine. But in any case, I'd say that this beats the Sinis Terrain any day. But at the same time, you're paying a lot of money to get this. But that was a nice little comparison that I was looking at there. One thing as well that Rieju did say, there's going to be loads of accessories available for this bike. So if you're looking at sort of crash bars, sump guards, you're going to look at the travel packs in terms of panniers and top box and stuff like that. There's going to be loads on offer, and that's something well worth considering as well. I think that's going to just about round up our first impressions review of the Rieju Aventura 125. I've got to say, this thing handles beautifully, and as a 125 commuter, adventure bike, just general runner, I think you're going to have a lot of fun on this if you test ride it and end up buying one. Certainly one to look out for, and I think it's going to be on quite a few of the adventure riders' minds, even above 125cc category. Of course, CBT and AE1 riders are going to be looking at this, but I think a lot of riders for the A2 and above market might want to think about stepping down to a 125, running a frugal bike and having a bit of laugh off-road with one of these. I think that's going to be something that Rieju are going to really be dominant with this bike on. I will leave it there and just give a few pros and cons. Again, engine is quite good. I wouldn't say it's a pro, but it's just nice and responsive and works nicely. The agility of this bike is bang on, and it's just so easy to ride. It just feels intuitive. A few of the negatives, I mean, CBS rather than ABS, the price tag, and it only comes in red or green and black. Maybe there was more colours that it could have been done for with the premium price tag, but that's a really minor negative. In any case, the Rieju Aventura gets a good thumbs up from me. So yeah, absolutely great. We'll leave it there and say, if you want to comment down below what you think the potential market of this bike is there going to be more 125 riders who are from the A2 category, or is it going to be riders who are literally looking at their CBT and jumping onto one of these? Let us know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe to Bike Matters to keep up to date with all of our antics and what we're doing and what we're getting up to, because it's got loads on the way. And from me, Alex, I'll say ciao, and I'll see you on the next one.